Picking up where we left off, we're going to continue the application with the customer that we added. So we're going to click the complete initial application with the applicant, or as you add customers into the system, in this reporting system, a record will be created there, even though the application hasn't been started. So we're going to click the name of the customer that we added, and it will redirect us to the application. Well, it'll take us to the overview page first, but to reach the application, we're going to select the intake tab here and press the button complete application with customer. And as you're adding customers, there was that prompt on the window prompt that said complete application with customer. If you select that button, it'll automatically take you to the page that we're about to go to for the application. So for categories 1, 2, and 3, there's more tabs here. We have the demographic and contact information. There's the automatic eligibility check, but categories 1, 2, and 3 will also have to complete information for education, skills and interest, and work history. There will be another video for what the application process looks like for category 4 grantees. So with the demographic and contact information, the info that we added to enter the customer into the system will automatically populate here, but there are a few other fields that we need to enter as well. So we're going to complete the street address, the city, state, and zip code. And the zip code asks for the +4 after the zip code. And if you're not sure what that is, we do have a link here that if you open this, it'll open a new tab and you can look up that the +4 by using the USPS's website search here. And then we'll need to enter the primary phone and primary phone type. There's some other optional fields in here as well, but for marital status, it's another field we have to enter, as well as race, ethnicity, sex at birth. If male is selected, there is a prompt asking if the customer has registered with Selective Service. And if yes, then you'll need to enter that Selective Service number. Going back up here, though, there's a question we need to answer after sex at birth. The next required question is, are you authorized to work in the US? Then after the Selective Service information, there is the military status, the option that best describes the customer's situation, how many people are in the household, and what is the household monthly income. And then the final question here is, how has the customer been negatively impacted by COVID? And once the information on the demographic and contact information screen has been entered, you'll click save and go to next page, and this will initiate the eligibility check to determine, based on the answers, if the customer is eligible for the JTED program. Okay, so in this case, the example that we have on test, this is an organization that offers categories 1, 2, and 3. We can see based on our answers that the customer is eligible for category 1 and category 3, but not category 2. And so what the system checks, and you can see the bullet points here, is if the customer lives in a qualified census tract, QCT, or disproportionately impacted area, DIA, or were negatively impacted by COVID. It also checks to see if the provider is located in a QCT or DIA area. So that's the first item that is checked. It also checks to see if the customer is authorized to work in the US, If the sex at birth was male, and it checks to see if they're selective service compliant. If they meet the low and moderate income guidelines, one of the last questions on the previous screen was the household monthly income. The 18 plus age range for category 1. And if they are unemployed or receive termination notice within the last 90 days. And so we can see based on those answers that they are eligible. And so for category 1, unemployed adults, this customer qualifies. But for category 2, underemployed adults are not eligible because the information we entered, they're unemployed, not underemployed. And they're eligible as well for category 3, the youth program, because of the information provided, but also the customer falls within that age range of 16 to 24. So that's the eligibility check. And so we can continue with the application if the customer is interested, or they can select if they're not interested. But if they are interested, you'll click continue with application. Then that'll take you to the next screen here for education. And so then you'll enter in the information based on the prompts. So the first one is, do you have a high school diploma or GED high set? And we'll enter the highest level of education. And depending on your answers, you may not have to enter some of the information. As we can see, these questions here disappeared when an associate's degree or higher is selected. But let's say in this case, it's GED, it's the highest level of education. And there are some other questions here. Do you know if that asks you, do you know if the customer has taken any of these assessments in the last 6 months? And you can just check the boxes there. And again, depending on which ones are selected, the other questions may disappear. But if you're not sure about that question, there are these other questions here. Can they follow basic written instructions and diagrams with no help or just a little help? Can they fill out basic medical forms and job applications without a calculator? Can they add, subtract, multiply, and divide whole numbers up to 3 digits? Can they do basic tasks on a computer? Do they speak and read English well enough to get and keep a job? Are they able to complete this form on their own? Then there's also a section here to add credentials. Any occupational credentials or certificates the customer has earned can be added here. All that needs to be entered is when you click add credential, the title, the date earned, and the credential type. So we'll just enter that information here. And then the last question is, do they have work experience in this field that they trained in? And if so, there's another question, can they still perform the job that they've been trained in? So we're just going to go ahead and click save here. We can see the credentials been added. So we'll click save and go to the next page, and this will take us to the skills and interests section here. So the first question at the top are, what are 3 things you'd like to get out of this program? Let's see, let's enter some text here. And then the next question is, what kind of work would you like to do? And you can select all that apply. What type of training would be best for you? And what schedule is the customer willing to work? And so once those fields have been entered, you'll click save and go to next page. And then the last section here is the work history. And so this question is, what is your current employment status? If they select, I have not worked before, this will be my first job, that's all that needs to be entered here. You can complete the application. But for the other questions here, whether they have, I am employed but received a notice of termination or layoff, unemployed and have been actively looking for work, unemployed but have not been actively looking for work. So depending on the answer, you can make that selection. There's additional information to complete here. So if they are employed, this first question here, are you currently employed by this employer? Yes or no. You can enter the hourly wage. You can also enter the employer name here, and the date range of employment. Let's see, they started, let's say, July 1st, the job title. The street address for the employer. And the city, state, and zip code. You can also enter job duties, and then the next field here is hours worked in a week. Then there's a question, does this job meet your needs? Yes or no, and then a field for why or why not can be entered as well. And so once that employment information has been entered, you can click Save and Submit. And this will take you to the application summary page. And so you can see the information that was entered in those different screens we were on. And if we need to go back and edit this information now or at a later time, we can select the hyperlink here at the bottom of each section. So for demographic and contact info, we can come back and edit this by selecting that. Same for education, skills and interest, and work history. And you can see that we can collapse and reopen these tabs as well as opening and closing them all at once. And so then that is the application process for JTED customers who are eligible for categories 1, 2, and 3. In our next video, we're going to go over the rest of the intake process.